Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and today we are returning to business as usual. On the day I'm filming this, it's been 3 weeks since the fire and also 3 weeks since the end of the Femme Fairytale Readathon, approximately. So I'm quite late, but I was very excited about it while it was going on, and so I really want to talk about the books that I read for it. So Femme Fairytale is a readathon that is new this year, hosted by Bookish, who is a booktuber who I follow, and another booktuber whose name I have neglected to look up but will be here in text. And so because I really like Jean and her content and her taste in books, I got really excited about it and started picking up my TBR in the middle of February. So a lot of them were new books that I've never read before, because this is a really good opportunity to try out a bunch of new fantasy written by women that all my booktube and bookstagram friends had been recommending to me that I just hadn't gotten around to yet. So obviously whenever you read new books, I reread a lot. When you read new books, there's always the chance that you're going to find some duds, whether they actually be low quality or just not for you. Personally, my duds for this readathon were very high quality. They just weren't quite to my taste. But I also discovered some new books that I really enjoyed, and I'm so glad that I tried them out, because they've like totally added so much to my mind, my thoughts of fantasy. So there were a number of challenges for the readathon, which I'll see if I can get a graphic and stick it on here, otherwise I'll put it in the description. And I'm kind of meh about reading challenges, because I don't like to read things that I don't like, but I do really like to like check boxes off. That really pleases me, and also it feels more like you're engaging with the readathon the more parts of it you engage with. So even though I didn't try to check all 12 boxes, I tried to make all my reads different so that they would check off different boxes and not just be a bunch of the same thing. I think that's all the introduction that we need. Let's get into the books. So the first book that I read was Deathless by Catherine Valente. If you've watched this channel much, you might know that I am a huge fan of Catherine Valente. Her Fairyland series is my absolute favorite. She is wildly creative, her prose is gorgeous, and her books always bring me joy and make me think. So Deathless is a retelling of Russian myth about somebody the Deathless, whose name I can't remember right now. God of life, I think, or the something of life. I don't think they're called gods, they're called something else. But I really like Russian fairy tales and Russian myth, and so it checked the box for a book inspired by myth. As per usual, gorgeous prose, really interesting concept. I'm not all that familiar with Russian myths, so there were a lot of creatures and ideas and ways characters work and ways society works and ideas like that that are very not stuff I've read before, which is hard to tell if it's because it's inspired by Russian myth or if it's just because it's Catherine Valente and she's very creative. Probably a mix of both. So the main concept is there is this young girl who's very poor. Started like her childhood was during the transition from whatever it was before that to communism, and so we see her living in her small house with just her family, change to her living in her small house with I think 12 other families, not having enough food, just generally having a very hard time, and she gets whisked away from all of it by what's his name, the Deathless. So I think she was 17 or 18 when this happened at this part of the story, and she has a bit of a traumatic journey to Mr. Deathless's homeland, where he's the king of the land, and it's magical and kind of wonderful, but also not so great. She gets sick. Something about the transition between the real world and the normal world and the magical world is not very nice. Mr. Deathless is weird, kind of nice, but also kind of weird. It's weird, but I liked him well enough. And so the next portion of the book takes place in this magical land, meeting our main character's new magical friends, learning about her and Mr. Deathless's romance. And I was enjoying it very much, but there were some foreshadowing and also some stuff from the description of the book in the inside cover that made me think maybe this is not a HEA book, happily ever after book, like her other books by her that that I have read. And so I decided I would look it up because I was in, nothing bad had happened in my life yet. 4 weeks ago, bad things happened 3 weeks ago, but 4 weeks ago I was just not feeling good for regular mental health reasons instead of outward reasons, so I didn't want to read a not happily ever after book right then because those really upset me. I generally read to escape the sadness in my real life, so I like my happily ever afters. So I looked it up and it ends kind of ambiguously, but there's a lot of not happiness until then, and the ending isn't that happy, so I decided to put it down. I might eventually come back to it, but probably not. There's so many other works by Catherine Valente that I'd like to check those out first. So, Deathless, good book, interesting book, not really good for me and my mental health. But if you're interested in Russian folklore and don't mind ambiguous / unhappiness, I would highly recommend you check it out. Then, because Deathless had been making me feel down, I decided to go to Temeraire, which is a book that I have read before and loved so much, so it's very good for brightening up my mood. And if you want to see more about Temeraire, I will link a video below that's all about that series because I made a standalone video just about that series, even though I also did a wrap-up that included it because I freaking love Temeraire. Good book. It's by Naomi Novik and it's the first of a 9-book series, I believe. I love series too. And Naomi Novik is my other most favoritist author. I think I finished that one up in a day, so the readathon started on Saturday, I believe, and I took Saturday and Sunday to read half of Deathless, and then I read Temeraire all in one go on a Monday. Then on Tuesday, I read Howls Moving Castle by Diane Jones. I'm reading my notes over here because I had to look up the authors. And so Howl's Moving Castle was also very, very good for getting me out of a funk. It really actually reminds me a lot of the Fairyland series in the way that it is very out there and creative. It's that sort of wacky sort of magic rather than the set in stone systems of magic that are in things like The Name of the Wind. Oh boy, I can't think of any books with magic. Tortale. The Tortale series has magic that like makes sense. There are like systems set up where it interacts with the world and like basically functions as technology but cooler. But this is all about wacky magic, which is very much along the Fairyland series way of doing things. For one, there are like the physics bending things where doors open to different places when you turn the knob different ways. The castle is moving as indicated by the title. I had to go shush my parents. We're living in a 2-story house now and never have before, and one of them's sitting at the top of the stairs and one of them's standing at the bottom of the stairs talking loudly to each other right outside my room. So, Howl's Moving Castle. Very sweet romance with a not very manly man, which is the kind that I like. Or when the author is worried about making sure that her heroes conform to gender norms. That's also annoying. Don't mind if they have masculine qualities, if they just have those because they're men and man characters are supposed to have that and it's supposed to be attractive to women to be that way. That's annoying. So there's none of that with Howl, who is the hero of the story, so I really enjoyed that. I believe Howl's Moving Castle is middle grade, which is another reason why I may have liked it. I just reliably like middle grade better, probably partially because they're more likely to not be worried about making sure that the hero is sexy, which of course translates to masculine, because those are equated as far as, you know, what women should be attracted to. Anyway, also I really like the quality of middle grade that is, while there may be romances going on and there may be interpersonal problems going on, like in YA, the main characters tend to place more importance on what guy likes them over saving the world, even though both are issues they're supposed to be dealing with. Whereas in middle grade, reliably, the main character will have enough sense, despite being younger than teenagers, to recognize that saving the world comes first and we're going to deal with our interpersonal problems at another time. Another thing that I really like in a book is great side characters, which Howl's Moving Castle has. There is a apprentice wizard, I think they're called, in this book. You lose track of what magic people are called in different books. Wizards, sorcerers, magicians, mages, sages, witches. I think they're wizards in this one. So there's an apprentice wizard, and he's really sweet and fun and interesting, and there's a magical creature thing in the fireplace of the castle, and he is really interesting and fun. And the main character has 2 sisters and has a really strong relationship with them that also has its difficulties, as relationships with sisters are known to do, and just lots of great stuff like that. I think I'm going to make a spoilery discussion video for Howl's Moving Castle, so if you're interested in learning more about this book, or in talking about it once you've read it, which you totally should, I'd love you to come back for that video, because there's lots of stuff I want to say, but some of it is spoilery, so I just want people to be forewarned. So I finished that one in day 2 because it was in a day 2, because it was great. And then I started Heart's Blood by Juliette Marillier, I think is how her name is pronounced. So she is a favorite author of Jean Bookish Thoughts, who I haven't checked out yet, so I wanted to check her out during this readathon. And Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite fairy tales ever. I think it might be my favorite fairy tale ever. So a retelling of that fairy tale is a fairly safe place to start with a new author, and Heart's Blood is one of those. And so now I really like Juliette Marillier too. This particular retelling, the curse is not to actually make the beast ugly, and instead of a 10-year time limit, there has been a 100-year time limit because it has been intergenerational. It was started a long time ago because of a spell that went wrong with the current hero and cursed person's great-grandfather. So it's got its own take on things, but there is a ugliness aspect to the Beast character because he had a palsy when he was a kid, and his bones are somewhat out of joint because of that. Think Hunchback of Notre Dame, kind of. Yeah, maybe not quite as severe as far as the face and back goes, but still somewhat that. What's it called? But he also has lost the use of partially one of his legs and the hand on that same side. And actually one of the parts that I really like about this version of the Beauty and the Beast retelling is that normally in the story the Beast becomes not a beast at the end, and then he's really handsome and, you know, traditionally handsome. And so it always kind of seems kind of funny that if she did love him when she was a beast, why does he have to become not that? So in this one, he obviously stays the same because it's not part of the curse, it's just something that happened to him. Also, another part of the Beauty and the Beast story that is a little bit troubling is the part where the main female character, the Beauty character, usually starts out getting to know the Beast as his prisoner, whereas in this story she comes to work at his castle as a scribe. So it's a lot friendlier and less creepy. I say all these things I don't particularly like about the Beauty and the Beast story, even though it's my favorite, but you know, favorite fairy tale is relative because there's creepy, weird, nasty parts of all the fairy tales. Just this one has the least versus the most amount of good parts that I like. And so most of the story is the main character helping the rest of the characters at the castle she is now in, some of whom are under the curse and some of whom are not, figure out the curse and figure out how to fix it. And it was just really enjoyable. I really like the characters, the side characters who worked at the castle. The main character's family are also really interesting, and there's a really cool subplot there. I was able to figure out the curse a medium amount of time faster than the characters, but that makes sense because And like in a lot of times when you figure things out before the characters, it's either because you know more information than them or because they're exceptionally stupid. Because there was actually a reason given for them not being able to see that clearly in this area and figure it out. There was actually a reason for that. So I really appreciated that the author went to that effort instead of just saying, oh, they couldn't figure it out, or just not mentioning it. She actually gave a reason that made sense. Also, there is a part of it that really makes my little sex repulsed heart sing. I know, I'm gonna make an asexual video for A Spec April, which is like now-ish, so I will include talking about that specific part in that video. That'll be perfect. Then I won't put spoilers in this video. Then the last one I was kind of working on all week because it was an audiobook, so I would listen to it while I was animating. So I got Cinder and Cress from a library sale a couple of years ago, and I read Cinder right when I got it, but I never got around to requesting the second book in the series from the library. And so I thought that this Femme Fantail would be a great time to finally get around to that, because I really liked Cinder and wanted to continue the series. I just got distracted with all the other books to read, so I never got around to it. So the main character of Scarlet, because there are quite a bit of sections with Cinder in them, but the main character that is introduced in Scarlet is a Little Red Riding Hood character, and she is from France, and her part of her story takes part there, while I think Cinder was from somewhere in Asia. And so Scarlet's grandmother has gone missing, and there are various wolf named characters and organizations that may have something to do with it, which is a little on the nose, but whatever. After a mix of adult and middle grade books to go back to a YA book, there's a big divide there, and so people were suddenly caring about stupid boys again. I mean, A Heart's Blood was fully a romance, but still, there were other priorities going on. I think YA is great for teenagers who are like that to have representation of themselves, so they don't think they're crazy, even though they kind of are. It's just never been to my taste because I was never that kind of teenager, but still quite good. The girls are fairly good at their priorities, most of which are taking care of their family for Scarlet, and Cinder for kind of saving the world. They do a better job of focusing on those things over stupid boys than a lot of YA protagonists. But I don't have a whole lot to say about it because I only got maybe a third of the way through before I've completely forgot to be telling you what challenges these fulfilled. Anyway, besides Deathless being a myth, Temeraire was a historical fiction. Howls Moving Castle was published before 2000. Oh, and then Hearth's Blood and Scarlet were both fairytale retellings. Although there were also ones that were to do both adult and YA, so I did adult, YA, and middle grade, so that was good. Also, my artist friends, there's going to be a lot of Howls Moving Castle fan art coming your way. It might take a long time, just like the Fairyland fan art has taken a long time because I'm passionate about it, so I really want it to be good. But hopefully sometime soonish I'll actually get around to that. So generally I had a really good time with the Femme Fantail readathon. I engaged with some of the Twitter sprints and met some new book lovers. I actually had one person who was reading Temeraire at the exact same time I was and was like on about the same pages, so that was really fun. And she was reading it for the first time, so I kind of got to be excited for her for that. And then she was also a huge fan of Howls Moving Castle, so now we're book buddies. So it was a really nice time to connect with other readers. So my next book video is probably going to be about feminist lit feb, so I'm going to be talking about that in April. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Bye!